Feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me move. You can make me move. Can make me move. You can make me move. present here. On behalf of PDPU and PDPU Innovation and Incubation Center, I, Anjali Manik, welcome all the participants to today's webinar on technology transfer. Our esteemed speaker for today's webinar is Mr. Kwok. Mr. Andre has been in the field of entrepreneurship and development for almost 5 years. He is a graduate from the University of Hong Kong in the subject of international relations. He has managed two startups in the sector of education and development. He is the founder of Good City Foundation and Future City Summit. We are honored to have you with us, sir. Without any further ado, I would like to pass the platform to Sir. I request all the participants to kindly mute themselves.
Okay, thank you so much for kind introductions, and also thank you so much for having me here tonight. Good evening, everyone. This is Andre. I'm the apologize if this is from my end. So again, I'm the founder of Good City Foundation and Future City Summit. Thank you so much, everyone, to join this webinar for coming 1.5 hours. I'll be sharing mostly about what we are doing, and also some cases about technology transfer, especially in the startup level. And also would love to hear more from everyone. So I believe most of you guys from India, and also maybe a little bit from different countries, different backgrounds. So before I officially kickstart my sharing, there is a poll here. I hope everyone can click in. If you are with your mobile, if you are in your computer, feel free to do so. I will be also sharing screen here to show the immediate response. So how this works. If everyone is already in the screen, is already in the poll screen, the first question would be learning more about where you're from and also your background. And there will be additional 3 other questions that we would like you all to answer, a little bit related to, smart cities, tech transfer, and also what's going on that you think in the post-pandemic world. So we'll be giving a little bit of time for the first questions. What about 30 seconds? For those who have already signed in the form, feel free to do it. The survey is anonymous, so we don't record any name, and also no one will know which you vote. So feel free to do it in the coming 30 seconds. Know some of you are from universities, some of you are running your startups. No worry, feel free to pick your background, and we will be also sharing this result to the organizers. And for those who would like to speak something more, say you are not exactly from this domain, you are doing something else, let's say rocket science or medicine or something else, you can also feel free to type your voice in the chat box as well. After the sharing, I will be doing the checking of the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. So let's have 10 seconds more to finish this survey. For those who are staying in, stay there, because we'll be moving to the second question after 5 seconds. Good. So thank you for doing the vote. Then now let's move to the next questions. Stay in the same pool form. Basically, you will see these second questions, which is, what do you think the most important or crucial aspect to be addressed in India, especially with the government through technology transfer? There are a few challenges I particularly think India or the government itself may need to address more. A little bit based on my personal experience when I travel India. and also from the conversation that we usually have with India folks. A few items here that we can choose. Traffic jam. I'm not sure how the area around PDPU looks like, but seems like traffic congestion is a very common challenge in many cities in India. Environmental pollutions, particularly water pollutions or air quality, plastics, and so on. Hygiene, public health. I believe this is a big challenge to the country. Something tech transfer would be absolutely something hugely important to do. Since no one are picking commerce, digitalization, and access to digital banking, the last is education access. And if you think there's something else that is not available here in the options, but you really think that it is important to put up, feel free to also show your options and your opinion in the chat box as well. Again, for this question, let's have 30 seconds more. For those who would like to also elaborate more why you think the option you choose are very important, feel free to explain yourself in the chat box as well. Let's have 20 seconds more. Okay, so I think everyone has made your opinion. So let's move on a little bit to the next questions. The third one is very simple. Are you currently running your own startups or deciding? That would be very good for us for me to learn more who you are in this webinar tonight and why you're here, and if you're struggling, then also feel free to state more why you're struggling to start. Pandemic may be a good timing as well, but definitely more struggling. If you are already running your startup, feel free to also share more what you're exactly doing. Feel free to post your company link, what projects you're running. For those who are not running your own startups, you can also state a little bit more why you're here tonight and what particular items you would like to learn more. And we're happy to discuss. So in the coming, let's have 10 seconds more. And since we have 1/3 of entrepreneur here, so happy to know that. And the following sharing I'll be doing would be mostly, I don't want to put it too technical, but the one major case, there will be two cases I'll be mostly sharing. And one major case I would like to explain further is a typical but super important common way for startups to collaborate with, especially also governments and corporate. So happy to hear more voices. During my sharing, if there's anything that you disagree or you want to comment more, this is not the best way to do it. Feel free to share your opinion as well. I'm happy to learn more. So thank you so much for the third question. The last one is taking a little bit more time. This is an open-ended questions. There will be given 4 minutes. The scenario is if you're given time and resources in India, what sort of development challenges and innovations may be a little bit related to tech transfer that you would like to work on the most, especially in the current time like COVID-19. So I am told that the PDPU, the IIC, is one of the best startup campus incubator in India. So would definitely like to hear more voices and also interesting idea and projects and work that everyone is doing. So you'll be given 4 minutes from now, and feel free to type anything as possible that you are working on and you would like to share, what problems they are, what solutions they are, or anything you want to voice in this chat box here. You can type out in your survey and you can submit. Then it is also anonymous. Your name will not be marked there. And then feel free to put up there. It can be short sentences, it can be keywords or something like that. So feel free to put up. So let's have a bit of time. Feel free to put it. Let me edit a little bit the font size. Very good. We have some answers here right now. Renewable energy, and since we are talking about education and health a lot, smart waste management, smart city project. Let's have 2.5 minutes. They're pretty diverse, different answers here so far. Education is quite often mentioned here. Corruption is interesting keyword. Health sector, reducing fake news. Streamline online education. Skill development for laborers. Interesting. Let's have 1 minute more. So for those who haven't made up your mind, feel free to type statements, any keywords, any short sentences. If you want to type out there, even share your company. You put up your link there. All right, let's have 20 seconds more. Interesting. So again, thank you so much for everyone who input their effort here. We will be tidying up all the answers and share the results to the organizer. And whoever want to grab all this stuff back, you may reach out to maybe Justy or the organizers. Thank you so much for answering all this. I will keep that link open. Feel free to update anything. So the following time, I'll be all right. So thank you so much for muting. So let's go to the straight topic. So again, my job is a chairman of Good City Foundation. I run this nonprofit since 2016, and in our ecosystem, we also build ventures. So it is a hybrid model of for-profit and the nonprofit. But I'm wearing a nonprofit hat tonight to share the concept and also some possibly interesting model in cases about tech transfer that startups can take part of, and also some interesting insights that in the future you may see useful in the job, in the work. So digitalization 4.0 is not the word that I made up. Now, very fast, pretty much in the past 20 years, our world economics has changed and also impact accelerates so fast. 1.0, we're talking about the phones, 2.0 computer, 3.0, we're talking about internet, and now we're entering the 4.0, which is internet of cities and internet of things and everything. So under these digitalizations, we're talking about what's more we can do in tech transfer. So a little bit background of our work. We are first a nonprofit Good City Foundations. We are founded in Hong Kong in 2016 with a group of entrepreneurs, including myself, and also a group of scholars from the University of Hong Kong, Oxford, and other universities in Hong Kong and mainland China as well. So we have been delivering capacity building programs and also summits to multi-stakeholders when it comes to building cities, such as local governments, NGOs, universities, startups, community investors, and definitely international agency. Our connection since 2016 has been fast. We have been connected to international agencies like UNDP, ADB, World Bank, and down to somewhere very local stakeholders such as Indonesia Creative Cities Network, Greater Bay X, Cyberport Hong Kong, and so on. And we are happy to learn more and collaborate even further with India in the future. Like I said, I think we are very similar to everyone. At the beginning, we start everything in universities. That is the time when Hong Kong is still pretty much more connected to America and the Europe, and the connectivity of startups to regions like South Asia and Southeast Asia relatively less. So holding these concepts, we aim to build these nonprofit to connect the cities in the global South, South Asia and Southeast Asia. We first build a human network, and then we identify amazing and promising tech startups, tech companies, and identify the development challenges in the cities and explore how cities can collaborate, how technologies can be collaborate, and at the end, how cross-border transactions and technology transfer can happen. So I think speaking down to a little bit what's happening nowadays, the major challenge is the way we look at cities no longer the same like before. One driving factor is definitely COVID-19, something that has been impacting us since the December, last December, and also January this year. And so briefly to speak, COVID-19 basically has driven huge demographic impact, no matter on supply side and the demand side. And that lead to a lot of changes in cities. And that leads to, we are not talking about New Delhi, not just talking about Mumbai, but also many other second tier cities, how those cities would be evaluating, how those cities would be adopting more technology in future. So COVID-19 basically has created such a huge supply chain shock, population shocks, and also it sort of adjusts a lot of appetite how investors cooperate, collaborate in the future. So a little bit more global impact currently. We pretty much face the same future challenge. Jack Ma has spoken last month in Chongqing City in the Smart City Expo he's basically not just retired, but also he's still driving a lot of innovation. So last month he has spoken one interesting concept that China is facing the same digitalization and urbanization challenge that multiple first-tier cities have been facing population challenge, and the local government and also innovation ecosystem in China has to drive more new cities developments. So he has boldly stated a vision that in the coming 10 years, there shall be 300 more new cities being built, with each city having 1 million populations. And it has to be done by not only the conventional city building, but a modern, futuristic digitalization and big data driven urbanizations. So that's what we call the digitalization for all, and it has to be done by technology transfer. And similarly, not just happening, relatively more advanced economy like China, but also developing countries like the Philippines, that even Philippines is a population of 100 million people residing in the country. But can you imagine that actually over 80% of population still not having direct access to the bank accounts? And digitalization and proper technology transfer can push the movement of financial inclusion to the poor people, those 80% of population in such developing countries. So pretty much we would say we all share, no matter we are developed countries or developing economy, we basically see the same development challenge. And the new global dedicated movement would be in full city digitalization in future. And to add a little bit further, I believe this is something also similar case in India in future, that the focus of the urbanization and tech transfer will no longer just be in capital cities itself, but also many other second tier and third tier cities, new towns and new smart cities. And we are not just simply calling that smart cities, but micro smart cities. I believe such trend that I'm describing here in China would be pretty much the same like India, and happy to learn more what you all think. And to drill a little bit deeper, when we talk about developing micro smart cities, then we think this is actually very programmable and also very affordable. So we are talking about economy will be changing from industrialized area into not just personalized economy at the end, but as the right-hand side described, programmable economy. The beauty of future with technology and technology transfer, cross-border collaborations will be how to make sure customized developments will be happening in economy. In the future, we are not talking about large quantity transactions. We'll be talking about when large quantity transaction is happening, how such large quantity transaction is actually impacting specific needs of every individual persons. So to drive all this happening, our organization has been proposing a logic and also a development strategy. This is what we call the all-weather development strategy, and a little bit what we call double funnel model. This is one part of the model I would like to share here tonight, how technology transfer would be happening first in the theory level, and I'll be sharing two cases. So first of all, to dissect and also to get the full understanding what this picture is talking about, this is roughly describing how our nonprofit level, which is blue color, happening. And also we ourselves in the ecosystem, we have our for-profit arm, which is a venture building, impact investing happen as well at the end. So in the global level, in the network development level, it would be driven by nonprofit as it includes more stakeholders such as education, academia, think tank, nonprofit, and so on, and government. So we have been leveraging the power of nonprofit and international government, international organizations like UN, World Bank. Through such collaborations, we have been building agenda and awareness, and also the particulars of capacity buildings. And then we drive nonprofit level engagement through Future City Summit, which is our annual conference, and also on the right-hand side described, through the summit, we also start classifying the interest and also the need of stakeholders, and that's where the emerging Future Cities Network being built. In the summit and global level, we start identifying the interest and the need of different regions. We are not very active in India right now, but we have been doing a lot of work in a few Southeast Asian countries, such as the Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand. So at the summit level, we have identified, as we engage stakeholders from different countries and also different sectors, we start identifying the need of local particular stakeholder from each country and even the cities. So down to the below green line layer, for example, we have identified the need of, let's say, Bali Island in Indonesia. The local development challenge would be the future of tourism and also the natural environment, as they have been facing a lot of natural disasters, volcano eruptions, heavy rain, and so on. So down to the city and master planning level, we have identified the development need policy challenge. And that's where we also chime in the nonprofit city-specific program called Public-Private Partnership by Youth. At that point, we have identified the development challenge in that city in the program with the collaboration of city governments. Then we start identifying which local champion, which local innovations and companies are working on this particular development challenge. So that's where the red color for profit area starts jumping in. As we have identified the local champions, the startups or organizations, then that's where we identify the projects, and then we conduct the project procurement, financing, and collaborative strategy with each project. So this is a funnel for one city, and as we duplicate the funnel, that means, for example, like this funnel A, it is identifying challenge in Bali, and then on the other funnel, this is identifying the challenge in the city of Bandung in Indonesia, or similarly, say Manila City in the Philippines. So as the different funnels being built, as the attributes of the development challenge getting similar, that's where the technology transfer will happen. So I'll be explaining further how it really works with example. So during COVID-19, this is I will first talk about how technology transfer is actually happening in the startup level. When we were preparing this with Strasti, one of the very common model of technology transfer is joint venture. But actually, if we go to the case, this is something very interesting because it's hyper cross-border and also not just a one city to one city, but also multi-startups coming together and collaborate with city governments and nonprofits. So it's a little bit hyper collaborations, and this is a multi-stakeholder consortium forming first joint venture, and then at the end, a public-private partnership model. So first of all, we are talking about 4 innovations in a case. So the innovation 1 is affordable housing technology. This is a affordable housing company that we have identified in Jakarta in Indonesia that has been working with the local banks to build houses, very typical innovations. The second, we call it COVID-19 shock innovation. It is some innovation that has run out of the market, outweigh the performance. They have done particularly well during the COVID-19. Another innovation we have identified in Jakarta called Jack School, which is a education digitalizations provider in the city, in the country. So before COVID-19, they have been serving around 10 high schools in the city. And during the COVID-19, their revenue jumped 800%, 8,000% actually, with the revenue, and also the demand of school going digitalization increased drastically. The third innovation is, as the Jack School gaining the hyper scale up, they also leverage the amount of data they have got with the school and turn that into a payment environment as well, a payment system. So that's the little bit spin-off innovation they have done during the COVID-19 as Jack Pay. And the last, 4th innovation we call it COVID-19 shot is another fintech, but then the stakeholders that they address is totally another stakeholder, which is farmers and rural banks. So I think this is quite similar case in India, that there are many rural banks in the country, in the Philippines. And this fintech basically is providing digital core banking solutions to the rural banks. So the farmers can actually access to the rural banks digitally through the mobile phone or feature phone. And during the COVID-19, the Philippine central government has been dispersing a lot of pandemic relief, economic and stimulation packages for the farmers to boost up the farming and agriculture fishery industries. So the resources, the financial resources, can only be accessed if the farmers can access to the right tools and the right platform. So digitalization of rural banks become a super important facilities and infrastructure for the farmers and even the SMEs to access to the financial resources and the stimulation packages, financial aid for the business and livelihood. So these four innovations come together, and we have mentioned 3 innovations in Indonesia and 1 innovation in the Philippines. So how tech transfer really happened? Well, first of all, the triggering point is in the rural banks. Those we just talked about the ProPay, the rural bank core banking solutions provider. It's just the triggering point because both the Philippines and Indonesia serve the similar need of rural bank digitalizations. And when we compare the market of Indonesia and the Philippines, Indonesia market is basically 4 times as big as the Philippines. In the Philippines, there are around 450 rural banks and around 8 million account depositories. And in Indonesia, there are 4 times numbers of the rural bank, which is 1,600 of it. So basically, there comes in a potential differences that create a motivation that it is time for such a financial technology provider to consider expanding the business, expanding the technology assets to in other countries. But definitely, there are barriers of regulations, compliance, which I would not talk too much here in this case. But then I focus on how the market of tech transfer will be triggered. So this is one of the cases that basically, first of all, for the rural bank digital core banking solutions provider, the market trigger is the need here in the market size. So just bear in mind for the 4 innovations I've mentioned for now. And let's go to the nonprofit. Again, I just mentioned in the double funnel that the tech transfer can actually be easier triggered by nonprofit, not just totally, not every tech transfer have to be totally commercial or private sector. It can be through nonprofit or public-private partnership at the end. So one of the cases that we have done, I mean, as you remember, the 4 innovations I've mentioned in both countries, the triggering point, the second triggering point would be our nonprofit has happened to conduct this capacity building program in Bandung City right before COVID-19. And Bandung City itself is a interesting case because they have built new airport and it is super close to the capital city, Jakarta. But basically, the housing is facing a big challenge that this city has over 1,600 old buildings, and they are classified as sort of semi-heritage. That means the government has to burn a lot of public finance revenues from the taxpayers to maintain the houses, but then at the same time, they have been using the value in a very non-profit way. So that means the government basically is burning and losing money. So one of the development challenges is how we not just using the fintech or other technology innovations, but also how from the master planning perspective, how these hard assets, how these buildings can be better renovated and also better used to turn that into a more profitable and positively revenue for the government and win-win situations. That means private sector can gain from it, and the public sector, the government can also gain from it. So here, very simplified development challenge. The Bandung city in Indonesia is challenged to develop a digital infrastructure for smarter governance. This is one way that we see the problem because they have the hard assets, they have the buildings in Indonesia, in the Bandung city, and the government is trying to address to build the digital community because they have been facing a big challenge of policy formulations. And the challenge of policy formulation is because they lack of data. So we are combining these 2 challenges together, leveraging the hardware and turn these buildings into digital hub and digital infrastructure. So in the January, we have bring along a few advisors from mainland China, from Netherlands, and also bring along a few corporate and tech companies from the Philippines to join us. And ProPay is one of it. So in the solutions for the case of Bandung City, we have formulated a digital transformation theory. For these 1,600 idle heritage buildings, we believe that through the engagement with technology companies locally in Indonesia and overseas through the Philippines, can drive the change, can also drive the digital transformation for the city. So we decide, okay, this is going to be, first of all, hardware-wise, it is an urban data lab, and software-wise, this is a digital transformation for the economy. That means it will uplift and upbring the human capital and also create incubation for many other innovations in the city. And then we call it, this is going to be Digital Bandung City. So at the end, in the end of the workshop and the program, we bring the technology from the Philippines and the tech startup from Jakarta in Indonesia together. And we put these technologies as a bundle and as a technology consortiums, implement that in another city, which is Bandung City. So here you're going to see two ways of tech transfer. One is city to city, which is Jakarta to Bandung in Indonesia. Another way of tech transfer is cross-border, country to country, which is the Philippines to Indonesia. So here, the left-hand side, which is the tech companies from the Philippines, and the right-hand side from Indonesia. So after the programs, after the capacity building, the companies start sitting together and collaborate, design how exactly we can pilot this project first with one building in Bandung City. So here comes the hardcore of tech transfer. Let's look at the number. First of all, number one, we are driving this collaboration as a nonprofit so that we can communicate with the local city government easier and other relevant ministries for collaborations, because we are packaging these solutions and the tech transfer not purely as a commercial activities. We are bringing in social impact and also bringing in socioeconomic development for cities. And then we also bring in one of our subsidiary fund from Indonesia, Garuda Fund, which is a family office from our Indonesia city partner. So we need a local working entity to hold all these technology transfer from other partners. So we have built a local operating entity called Urban Data Lab, which in the entity, it is a data lab, but then in the hardware, it is a building. So as the photo picture here, this old building is the pilot building. We're gonna input the technology and turn that into a data lab with the resources and the human capital and so on and policies. This building used to be a museum of the city government, and now we are turning that into a data lab. The fourth and the fifth, this is where technology collaborations come in through tech transfer. So I will explain a little bit further. First of all, look at the right-hand side. We have mentioned the four innovations here: affordable housing, education technology company, education and campus payment company, and also the rural banks company. And the SkyTel is a telecom from the Philippines. So first of all, in the overall technology design, these companies will be bundled together as a consortiums, and the technology itself and also the usage will be granted with license to the local entity, which is the Urban Data Lab in Bandung. And then, as anyone may have also learned about project financing, to conduct this kind of PVP, basically we need guarantee and investors, and definitely also local city government for the approval and the guarantee from the central government. So the Urban Data Lab become a local operating entity to secure the local funding guarantee from Garuda Fund, and Garuda Fund also add as an investors. And the local entity, Urban Data Lab, would be grounded and also approved by the local city government at the bottom, which is Bandung city government, to operate in those buildings. And then the Good City Foundation, which is the nonprofit, will be acting as the overseas development organizations to provide more right and relevant capacity building for the local city government to understand why this is important and why and how other relevant policies, tech policy, data policy would be advocating to the development of urban data lab. A little bit more detail to the technology side, why these companies are coming together. Well, first of all, the design of these technology bundles come from a need of creating more data points of collective information from all the users and also the mobility in the populations in the city. So first of all, we import the telecom from the Philippines to provide a free SIM card in all the users and also the households who gonna use the urban data lab, and then it collaborate with the local affordable housing company 1000 Terrace for the households, and also the similar strategy goes to the school with Jack School and also other users in the rural banks by Pearl Pay and the campus by Jack Pay as well. So this bundle of solutions, this bundle of technology, the fundamental principle is create an environment to collect the data point, and there will be three major community will be digitalized. One is the yellow color, which is the affordable housing households in the city, and also the green color, which is the rural bank users. Those are the farmers and the SMEs who consume the rural banks. And lastly is the urbanized population, which is in the city center, the purple area, the purple color. Those people who live in the Braga area, which is the capital area in the Bandung city. So these technology landing in the city would be infiltrating to all the users, and they become a bundle of solutions. That means for those users who use any of these solutions, say they use Jack Pay for campus transfer, they also access to the services of the telecom and also access to the services of affordable housing and also the rural bank payment. So this is roughly how the a very particular case of tech transfer happened in across the country, across the city. I will, if anyone has any very particular questions, feel free to raise, or we can talk about it further in the after I share as well. And definitely to after we really formulate the collaborations and the project structure, as the pilot is being done, we conduct the project evaluation as well. So we adopt the framework of livability framework that is coined by the Center of Livable City, which is a center under the Ministry of National Development in Singapore for evaluating the way we impact livelihood in the city. So there are three biggest domains: quality of life, competitive economy, and also sustainable environment. So that means from a very intangible economy developments to the way we preserve culture, preserve the local environment and the nature. And lastly is the way people live. That is the three key elements we assess and also the way we design. At the end of the day, the core question to our mind is, are we doing the right tech transfer? Is it just conducted for profitability or just for the sake of attracting more investors? Or turn out we are really impacting the livelihood of people? Are we doing making the Bandung city a better place for people to live in? Little bit second profile I will go through very fast. People may wonder, oh, I'm not from technology background. I'm not really from engineering, computer science background. Is it still related to me? Is it still related to me in tech transfer? In general sense, yes. Technology transfer is not simply per se, it has to be electronics related or it has to be programming related. So this second profile, which is what already you can see is a bamboo economy, is pretty much about natural resources, architecture style exchange, and we can still coin it as tech transfer. So very quickly to go through, basically, we have identified the local development challenge with Bali in Indonesia here. Since last year, tourism is the biggest challenge because the city has been heavily inclining the manpower and GDP into tourism. So as you can see, during the COVID-19, basically they have faced all the challenge. 90% of tourism companies in Bali shut down. No one come to Bali at all. So in the second phase of the capacity building, which is exactly again January this year before COVID-19, this time we particularly collaborate with Harvard universities to bring along professors and also master of architect design engineer to one of the identified projects in Bali to study how local architecture can turn this heavily tourism concentrate economy into something else. So we have spent our venture team and also our program and the Harvard people stay in this village for 2 weeks. And we have a lot of good funds. We do the surveying and also need assessment. And then we find out, okay, something interesting is there are many houses like this being built by bamboo. And most of the resources actually imported from the Philippines and Vietnam. But as the students study as well, there are actually many bamboo forests also nearby the island. So basically, the tech transfer that we have done with Harvard at the end is they have conducted case studies here in this village and create solutions how the bamboo as the new materials for the housing can be sourced and also circulate inside the Bali island itself instead of heavily relying on the importing from the other countries. So, and these solutions is highly adopted during the COVID-19 because the tourism basically is heavily shut down, wind up. And so one of the project that we identified in Bali, at the end, they have stopped the tourism business and they turned their own place into a bamboo factories. So they start adopting what has been suggested and also recommended from Harvard universities and turn the skills and also turn the design into reality. And turn out the bamboo village that used to be an ecotourism place turned into a bamboo treatment center. The skilled labor from tourism services in turn become a bamboo workers, and they have been collecting old bamboo, the worn out bamboo from other housings nearby the regions, and upcycle them into furnitures and also handicrafts. And they also supply the new bamboo materials locally harvested in Indonesia, in Bali. And they also definitely create the treatment and also provide maintenance for bamboo materials. So as you can see here, this is not exactly a very tech savvy tech transfer style. It's also not even infrastructure scale technology transfer, but then actually in a broader sense, natural resources, models, and architecture and design will be something that need to be localized through top-notch knowledge transfer as well. So that's pretty much the cases we have shared. I think I spent enough time talking about all those stuff. And the lastly to say, appreciate everyone staying for that long, listening to all these cases. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. In December, we will be looking for more innovations. We will be hosting our annual conference and looking forward to and we're looking for interesting technology companies that are addressing your city problem, and happy to get your submissions. We will be providing access to seed capital and also other incubator networks in especially Hong Kong and other Asia-wide partners. And we definitely also aim to groom the tech companies with business integrations and also other corporate partnership, especially in Hong Kong, and definitely other tech experts as well to make sure the technology is doing the right thing. And the similar, we hope that at the end, the startups that we have recruited at the end would be helpful and conduct similar exercise like I have mentioned in case 1 and 2 in the Philippines and Indonesia. And the last is, again, thank you so much for having me here with PDPU, and definitely look forward to more collaboration in India and with the PDPU IIC as well. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. This is my LinkedIn and also my email. Feel free to write to me. If you wish to chat further, I have also put my city partner in India, Attiya, to chat further. And so overall, thank you so much for spending time listening, and happy to receive any questions and clarifications, any disagreement. Happy to talk about it together. Thank you so much. So I think if I'm not sure if we have MC here, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to I think you can unmute and just throw me the questions.
Hi, sir.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm Dikvijay Raut, and I wanted to ask that how can students like us participate in the FCA's annual summit, which happens? And is there any opportunity or a window for us available over there?
Sure. Well, because the summit is going to be virtual this year, so we are going two process in recruitment. One is by nominations, another one is by open recruitment. So if you are interested in our summit, you can maybe you can drop me a message in the email. Then I can forward this to our city partner Attiya to process further. And I mean that's overall for the summit engagement. If you're running startups, then you can also go to our Facebook page. You can see submission link, and if you feel ready to pitch, then you can submit your pitching deck there in the link. We welcome engagement from different levels. So for students, for general students, we have been hosting different other activities online, like webinars. You can stick with us, and if you are initiating anything, we are happy to learn about your ideas and your story as well. So I think that's generally we as a nonprofit how to engage more and more network, welcome any new ideas and any new initiatives, and we can see how we can support each other within our network.
Sir, one more question that I had, that during the tech transfer process you mentioned, like how much the government is it offers a resistance to the process. And what do you think would be the condition of the cities like Silicon Valley if they're given independent operations, and the government is not included in what they want to do? So what would be the bar they set in the technological standards in their city and as well as the other cities?
Good question. So I think first of all, it is hard to compare Asia and the West. Silicon Valley has their own culture. Actually, the tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley are pretty close to politicians and policymakers. I think the think tank culture is very strong in the West. So pretty much the technology standards and the way they do compliance and the way they form tech policy to facilitate technology transfer and innovation and investment is very close to each other. Back in Asia, and I think in the case of, I can't speak too much about India because I'm not very familiar to the market, but I think taking the case, like I mentioned, in the Philippines and Indonesia, the government itself is on a high level, on a very general perspective, they are highly encouraging technology transfer because that's where economic valuation boosts up. But then it comes to the tech startups to initiate a lot of partnership and bottom up. I would say to make public-private partnership in tech transfer in Asia or developing Asia itself is relatively slow. But definitely in somehow it depends also to the personalities of mayors and the central government. But in general, it's just slow. And it did, well, the major factor is the development of technology is relatively faster, and then the technology compliance, the policies, and the regulation, especially if we talk about fintech, such as the Pearl Pay, when Pearl Pay as a digital core banking solutions have to migrate to the market of Indonesia, that basically they have to apply the new license. So in the process like this, in the scheme of it, basically it is going to be the private sector comes first. We have to figure out where is the commercially interesting point, where is the commercially attractiveness for them to come in. And that's why I mentioned that Indonesia market is 4 times larger than the Philippines. So it attracts the Pearl Pay to come over and implement the technologies. It overcome the barrier that they may have to think about. They need to raise another fund to overcome the tech compliance from the central bank in Indonesia. But because the market is huge, so it's worth to lend the business. But after the business is lent, then it comes to the local government to open the door. Is the local government, such as Bandung, are they facilitating or they are basically kicking, not doing anything for them? In the case of Bandung that I just mentioned, the Open Data Lab, the Bandung city government sponsored the building. That means in the first 5 years of the building, the city government absorbed the operation costs and the maintenance costs. That means these startups, this bundle of startups, have 5-year freeway to test and experiment and incubate the market. So it comes in the local government to open up and also embrace the new technologies and sort of adventure the market together with the tech founders. So that's how I generally would describe the tech transfer. The local government have to jump in at the right time and open up their, traditionally, government is very conservative. But I think at the age like now, we are all talking about digitalization and technology transfer is happening everywhere. So it's time for local city government to open up and embrace all this new stuff.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. So any other questions?
Hello, sir. The session was very insightful. I have one question though. Sir, how can startups contribute to technology transfers, and what is the role that startups can play in the entire process?
Right. So, well, in general, I think tech startup is super important. If you look at a very traditional tech transfer, we are usually talk about infrastructure. So, for example, typical example is back in early 70s, 80s, when Samsung in South Korea shared their chip technology to mainland China. This is the very hardcore computing power technology transfer it's a government to government process that time. And even the company at that time, even Samsung and the counterpart corporate in China is state owned. So it used to be government to government activities, and nowadays it is getting more and more private company to government or government to private to government process. That means private sector has to be involved because this is a job of the private sector to create a market motivations. Otherwise, there will be government to government tech transfer, which doesn't make money or which doesn't make economic values. And why this is important to create economic value? Because if you don't create economic values, then that means we are transferring technology that doesn't really create jobs, or we're forced to create jobs, but turn out it is not sustainable in a long way. So the efficiency of private sector engaging in tech transfer is huge. It's hugely important. And we talk about efficiency, startup is where it comes in. So we are not talking about general tech startup, but really champion tech startups, those winning from the game with really outstanding entrepreneur who understand the domain, understand the technology and the industries, scale up fast. I think the charisma of the founders play a big factor to drive this process of government to private to government partnership. So startup play a big role because even in the tech transfer at the end, involve the corporate, there are certain processes that need to involve the startups to faster the process. Otherwise, at the end, we will go back to the age like you see the tech transfer and only it has been lasting, the project cycle is lasting for 3 to 5 years or even longer, and still nothing may happen. But then the role of startups basically is quickly input innovations, the fast executions, and also compress the project cycle. I think this is the very crucial role of startups to play in this tech transfer project cycle.
Thank you so much.
I have seen these questions from Samath. Well, the central government respond to, I think you're talking about the Urban Data Lab. It is a good question because central government actually have to be informed about these projects. So during the process of what I just mentioned, at the end, when the Bandung city government is aware of these Urban Data Lab and they have to approve that they will be sponsoring the building, they have to inform first the parliament of Indonesia, and they also have to inform the Ministry of Finance that they are foreign resources. So if you go deeper, that's why I emphasize that we are forming a local operating entity. The local operating entity is not just for following the local law, but actually, if these technology come in as a Filipino companies, they are considered as foreign investments, and the whole taxation scheme, the whole foreign tech transfer barrier would be here. And then this is another process going to another ministries to report there is a Philippines company doing this collaboration with the local government. So that's why formation of the local operating entity would be one of the strategy to faster the process, but definitely there will be drawback as well. So central government that does play a role, and also that's why when the tech startups come in, no matter the technologies are from startups or SMEs or conglomerate, they usually will come in and establish local entity first, and then go to supply the local government. So that become a local technology process instead of a foreign technology process. Yeah, so any other questions?
If in case you have got any questions, please feel free to put your questions in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask. Okay, so I think there are no more questions, but in case if any of you have got any questions, either you can email it to Andre directly or you can write to us as well, and we will try and get back to you with the answers, or we'll try to solve your queries. So Andre, thank you so much. It was a wonderful webinar. Thank you so much for wonderful insights and how you have developed using technology during post-lockdown and help businesses and help people survive. So yeah, thank you, and hope to see you around soon, and looking forward to the collaborations with PDPU and the Innovation Center and Future City for such more amazing developments and promoting entrepreneurs and technology.
Sure. Thank you so much, Shati, for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was our pleasure to have you.
Same here.
Thank you, Andre.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Same to you.
Feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight.